So when I came finally after months of repulsion and hesitation and internal arguing with my own desire, when finally I was able to say, okay, I will surrender. I will surrender. And maybe this word for you even brings up something to even hear the word surrender, what it would mean to surrender to all of this sensation in your body. I met with my very first coach, and they looked at me and they said, yeah, you can't feel the erotic because you're too messed. Now, you might have heard that word before. You might kind of wonder, what does that mean, too messed? I think it sort of was classically used in romance novels and things like this as engorgement. But tumescence essentially is where energy is expanding but not released. And Eros wants to move, right? Like I'm saying, it wants to create, it wants to express this aliveness that's coming through us. And yet all of us, for instance, me, I had my habit of introversion, my fear, my perfectionism, resentment, our conditioning, all of these things that we have that prevent us from expressing our erotic. And someone says, how is that word spelled? Tumescence. Tumescence. I'm going to put it in the chat box here. Tumescence. Or tumescence is the word. And I'm using an extrapolation of it in this way. Reich talked about it as like a psychosocial armor, that when this energy wanted to flow through us, but we block it, is that we end up more rigid. And you can just think of anything that wants to flow, and that doesn't. If there's anything that wants to flow and doesn't, swamps, rust, clots, gridlock, you can think of your own version. And this is, how Reich described this. But even recently, I don't know if anyone else attended Gabor Mate's session. It was so brilliant. I listened to it a couple of days ago as part of this conference. And in his work, he deeply talks about when we have life that wants to move through us, when we have emotions that want to move through us, and we block them because of trauma, because of cultural conditioning, because of systematic injustice, for all of these reasons, that when that happens, that is where disease can be created. Not the only reason for disease, but an incredibly contributing factor. And in the same way here, when this life energy wants to move and we block it, then we start to feel this dis-ease, right? Or Reich would say this psychosomatic armoring, what I call tumescence. In fact, one of the things that I talk about with my clients is that every feeling withheld or blocked, every desire held back, unacknowledged, or a truth that you don't feel safe expressing, ultimately it's like a layer on your genitals, a layer on your clit, a layer on your sex, that is that kind of armoring. Now, that doesn't mean we have to walk around and acting out every single thing, but it's like I said in the beginning, it's about willingness to be intimate and to feel it. So we can remember this, and think about this. And I'm glad people are sharing about Wilhelm Reich, really brilliant work. You can look him up, and about working with the erotic in this way. And ultimately, what the way that he described it was that when we don't have this flow, we end up with a certain kind of impotence. We can't let life flow through us. And when you think about in our, especially Western society, but I really believe majority of cultures throughout the world now, there's so much constriction around this, and we all have layers over our sex. We all have some experience of tumescence. And thank you for referring to that Gabor Mate talk. I highly recommend everyone listens to that. He's a real genius in talking to these things about what it looks like to really trust our inner instincts and let them flow, so life doesn't get caught, but actually can be expressed. And ultimately, we're talking about the same thing, but here in the erotic realm.